I got drawn into Pennsylvania hardcore scene when I saw New Jersey Bloodline and Punishment play on the West Coast. They were playing with bands like Hood, Sworn Vengeance at the time. I got really into the bands. I really liked any band that really came in the area at the time, but for some reason, the attitude, the way they danced, all that shit just got me into the fact that I wanted to go to the East Coast. I wanted to go to Philadelphia. And when it came down to it, I just started making friends, through the internet of all places. And PAHardcore.com was actually the place I started going to, and met guys like Chris Brickhouse, Mark Stokey, Dave Heck, guys from Lansdale, Phoenixville areas. They took me in, basically. They said, come out, and I was working a shit job part-time at a pizza restaurant and saved my pennies and decided to at age 16, just go out, just go and do it. And most 16-year-olds at the time, they were taking, vacations to, family houses and whatnot, and I was just saving my pennies so I could go to another show in a different city. That was in the year 2001 when I finally made it out there. When I was seeing Punishment, it was year 2000. It wasn't too long ago, but...
So you would have to say, you have to credit a lot of your networking to Brickhouse's site, PAHardcore.com?
I definitely have to credit a lot of my networking to Chris Brickhouse's website. I mean, at the time, I didn't really have the connections just to be, going on tour. I didn't have a band. I didn't have, a ways to go on tour. I was still in school. I was a little high school kid. The internet was the way of the thing. That's what you did. You went on the internet to find these bands, to find the music that you liked, if you weren't finding it through zines or distros or whatever. But that's how the networking comes into play. That's where that comes into play, and I just got hooked. Like, when I got there, let's just put it this way, they brought me in, they treated me like family, and I just couldn't look back. I felt at home when I got to Pennsylvania. I've been coming back here for over 10 years. Once a year, every year if I can. Lived in the area for a little while. I just fucking love it. It feels like at home. Like, it's like my vacation home away from home. Not to say it's a vacation home, but I have my best friends here. I have, some of my best memories here. I just cannot see myself anywhere else in the future than like the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. If there's any Pennsylvania hardcore bands that might have impacted my life, I'd probably say, oddly enough, Leavenworth was one of like the big things that happened to me, because Dave Heck is one of my closest friends. He took me on tour down to Florida with him and some guys from CDC, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. It was just a week of just being just a bunch of dudes, just a bunch of friends hanging out, and we just got into the craziest debauchery, weirdest, funniest stories you can think of. Probably not going to divulge right here, for everybody to know, but I have to say definitely some of the best times of my life. When people talk about places like New York, Boston, those are like the big ones. Everybody thinks, oh, Boston hardcore is this. They got those, they name the big bands. New York especially has got a big pedigree. Pennsylvania is kind of that hidden gem. It's not a hidden gem by its own, but any band that can go on tour knows that Pennsylvania is this place you want to play. It's a place you want to be. I mean, the kids are awesome. The scene is huge, and it just definitely does get lost in the shuffle. I do have to credit Joe Hardcore for bringing This Is Hardcore out in the forefront as one of the biggest fests, because now people are starting to recognize that Philadelphia and Pennsylvania is one of the best scenes out there, and it's something I've been saying for the better part of over 10 years. East Coast Tsunami at the other, at the other end of the spectrum, you have East Coast Tsunami, which was probably my favorite fest of, I think it was the second year they did it. Had the time of my life. I had my friends from Chicago come out to hang out. I was meeting new friends from Baltimore, but just embracing my friends from the Pennsylvania area, and it was just like this perfect mix of everybody from everywhere, just out for the same thing, just to have a good time. Well, Philadelphia was a different experience for me. Like, I come from Northern California, I come from the Bay Area, Oakland, San Francisco. But it was a pretty rough and tough scene in the late '90s. It was awesome. I had a good time. It wasn't anything to scoff at, though. But coming to Philadelphia was a whole different vibe. I mean, I never felt that nervous at a show, especially being as skinny and 16 as I was. and just knowing I had to protect my teeth if I'm around that horseshoe. That's pretty much what it come down to. But I mean, I never felt like I was more at home at the same time. But then again, granted, my first show in Philly was actually Punishment with Hoods and Dying Fetus and Seed. So that kind of gives you an example. You have your Northern California bands playing with your Philadelphia and then the random Baltimore metal band. But it was definitely a home away from home show, familiar faces, but at the same time, I was in someone else's backyard and still had that nervous feeling at the same time.
Word.
Is that at the Kill Time?
It was at the Pontiac Grill.
Stick out of that?
Actually, no, man. I'm really good at keeping my head, clear from all that shit. I'm not a violent person. I'm actually quite a small person. If I try to beat somebody up, it'd be the funniest thing in the world. I mean, come on. You have the mental picture right there in your head. No, honestly, I don't get into drama. I don't get into bullshit. The only times I've ever been in any fights is if, there's somebody that is disrupting a show or something. I get in the shuffle. I just don't really get into it. But Bad Luck 13. Let me tell you about them. I've never seen that in Philadelphia. I've seen them in all places, New Jersey, at that last Hellfest show, which was amazing. That was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life, especially to see my friends on camera doing what they're doing. But when they came out to California, that was a taste of the Philadelphia scene in Northern California. We had some Reno bands playing, we had Oakland bands playing, and Bad Luck 13 headlining, and I told Gabe, the guy who was booking it at the time, I was like, it's not going to end well. They are going to get crazy. He's just like, oh no, he said it's okay. He said it's okay. Or they said, whatever. I'm telling you, I'm like, all right, do what you got to do. I'm going to be in the back. And as I was in the back. Because the Pound of the place was, it was in San Francisco. You have your back door that goes to the ticket line, and then you have your patio. Then you have the stage, and then you have the other doors. I was sitting right at that door where the two exits were. And the next thing I know, the Oakland skinheads are getting pissed off because these guys in luchador masks have their fucking flaming baseball bats. They start going at it. And then all of a sudden the Sacramento kids start going at it. And then all of a sudden the Reno kids start going at it. I've never seen so many factions of people fighting each other. And I see these guys in Bad Luck just kind of looking at everything like this, loving it. Because they did start a riot in San Francisco. You have great bands like Wisdom in Chains that deserve respect. You've got great bands like Animal House that deserve the utmost respect. You've got, bands like, you have the cross bands like Lifeless, kids from Jersey, Delaware, whatever. All I gotta say is Pennsylvania is one of those heart states that definitely brings in a lot of good. There isn't a lot of bad I can say about the Pennsylvania hardcore scene. I've loved it for over a decade. I like to say I've kind of been a part of it for over a decade, here and there, being from the West Coast and everything. But Pennsylvania is the greatest state in the nation. Philadelphia is my favorite city in the nation. And I'm just lucky to have been somewhat a part of it.